Evening, I'll call the meeting to order, please. And we'll begin this council meeting by acknowledging that the County of Prince Edward is on traditional land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to the land. Today, the County of Prince Edward is still home to many First Nations and Métis people, and we're grateful to have an opportunity to meet here, work, and continue stewardship of the land. On behalf of the members of council and our municipal staff, I would like to welcome the members of the public in attendance this evening, as well as those at home watching this meeting of council. This meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. The agenda package was published last week, enabling members of the public and council to become familiar with the material we'll be discussing this evening. It's available at the county's website at thecounty.ca. Members of the public who wish to provide comments under the section of the agenda titled Comments from the Audience may do so by contacting the clerk's office at clerks@pecounty.on.ca and registering to speak by noon on the Monday before the scheduled council meeting. The clerk's office can provide additional information. This evening, I will invite members of the public to make comment after we hear from any pre-registrants. Comments from the audience are limited to 30 minutes. A reminder that if you participate, your name will be included in the council minutes and form part of the public record and will be posted to the county's website. I want to remind everyone that we may differ in opinions, but it is important to remain respectful of each other. For those in attendance, please refrain from clapping or cheering in the council chambers as it detracts from the discussion and is in contravention of the procedural bylaw. The recording from this meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting streaming at the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. The bylaws listed on this agenda provide the force of law to decisions of council. So we'll move now to item 3 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Councillor Harrison?
Yes, I'd like to disclose an interest in agenda item 12.7, motion 2025-23. The bylaw listed on the agenda, I guess, is the planning minutes and student ownership of shoreline.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, so we'll move to confirmation of the agenda. If I could have a mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor St. Jean and Councillor Branderhorst.
Thank you, Your Worship. St. Jean Branderhorst motion that the agenda for the council meeting of January 28, 2025 be confirmed.
Thank you. Those in favor? That carries. So we'll move to, we have no closed meeting. We have obviously no report arising from a closed meeting, so we'll move forward to announcements. And I understand there are several notices of motion that are going to be presented this evening, so I'll start. Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As council will recall, on January the 14th, I made a notice of motion to have staff investigate the legality of Pecton Terminal's rock removal / quarry operations and report to a future meeting of council. Well, as it happens now, such investigation has actually begun. As reported in the Toronto Star and the Picton Gazette, charges have been brought against Pecton Terminals regarding exactly this issue, whether they are operating an illegal quarry in contravention of the Aggregate Resources Act. I did not know this was going to happen when I made the initial notice. So given that the first hearing on this legal matter will be held at Picton Court on March the 7th, I feel it's now better not to presume an outcome, but to wait to see if and how the charges against Pecton Terminals will proceed. Once we've learned the court's decision after March 7th, I will come back with a more specific and well-informed motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brainey.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. I will be bringing forward a notice of motion that will be pertaining to a ballot question for the next election that will focus on a governance review, and size of council will be a part of that. So I'll be bringing that forward at our next available council meeting and give more detail then.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any other announcements? Okay, I've got one proclamation I will read. And this is to proclaim February as Black History Month. And it reads as follows. Whereas Black History Month was first recognized in Ontario in February 1993, marking the 200th anniversary of the passage of legislation prohibiting the importation of slaves into Upper Canada. And whereas the United Nations proclaimed 2015 to 2024 the decade for people of African descent, an important step in the international community recognizing that people of African descent represent a distinct group whose human rights must be promoted and protected. And whereas, during Black History Month, Canadians celebrate the many achievements and contributions of Black Canadians who have and continue to do so much to make Canada the culturally diverse nation it is today. And whereas Black History Month is a time to learn about the stories and many important contributions of Black Canadians to the settlement, growth, and development of Prince Edward County. And whereas, as Prince Edward County's population becomes increasingly more diverse, Black History Month is an opportunity to embrace diversity and foster belonging and inclusion. And whereas Black History Month is a month in which we learn of both great accomplishment and trauma, both of which are important for all of us to understand. That understanding and a commitment to act make us stronger and better as a community. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Steve Ferguson, the Mayor of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2025 as Black History Month and encourage our residents to celebrate cultural diversity in our community that we all call home. So we'll move now to, don't see no more announcements. That was me and the mic. We have no presentations, but we've got deputations, 3 deputations. So we'll move to 9.1. The first deputation is by Sue Mathieu, Secretary of Prince Edward Fitness and Aquatic Centre. Welcome back, Sue. You're no stranger to making this presentation. I'll remind you, you've got 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Ferguson, members of council. As the Mayor has said, I'm Sue Mathieu. I'm Secretary to the Board at PEFAC, and I'm here to present our annual report to council. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about our successes this year and also provide you with some information on our performance over our last fiscal year, which ended last October. I'm going to talk a bit about our budget for this year, some challenges, and also moving forward. We've developed a long-term vision which we would like to share with you. Those successes, we're very happy that our membership growth has been substantial in the last couple of years. We actually reached our highest ever last summer. We have increased our wage rates, and with reference to a comment made at last year's presentation, we are now paying a living wage rate to our 5 core employees who work full-time hours. We have a new chair of our board, Art Knight, 2 new board members. We have a new aquatics and children's program staff person. And I am confident, and we are confident as a board, that we have fully recovered from COVID-19. So let's talk a bit about our performance over the last year. As I said, our membership has reached an all-time high. If you look at the chart, the blue was pre-COVID, the yellow was just as COVID was ending, the red is this past year. These are monthly data because our membership does vary by month depending on what type of program people buy into. We reached a high last July of 1,185 members. We're very close to that currently, so we're holding that membership level. I also want to talk a bit about program participation. PEFAC has lots of non-member users. You don't have to be a member to come into PEFAC. You can buy a program, you can participate in swimming lessons, you can go to day camp. Some of our important programs are the Swim to Survive program. This year we had grade 3s from all 7 public schools in Prince Edward County, 176 children in total, and each of them made 3 visits for swimming lessons. So they learned the basics of how to survive in water. We have group swimming lessons, which are about 250 children, but each of them takes multiple courses. And we also have run a summer day camp with last year about 1,600 child visits. One thing about our summer day camp is it's very affordable. Our rates are only $35 for a day. I may have read that right. So yeah, $35, $145 a week, which is quite cheap compared to others in the county. For example, Base 31 charges $225 for a week. Also, we're seeing an increase in facility usage. So this data reflects the counts of people using the space. And again, the red is this past year. Our space visits were up 21% from the year before. And we believe that that's reflective of a growing younger population in the county, where our members are actually visiting the facility more often than they might have done in the past. This data is from our audited financial statements. As I mentioned, our year end was August 31st, and it shows 3 years, so just as COVID was coming to an end, and then the last 2 years. And you'll see that our revenue has gone up from $718,000 to almost $900,000 in those 2 years, which is a very big jump. And in particular, the jump has been in our earned revenue, which comes from memberships and passes. In the first year, 2022, we had a lot of money for COVID-related grants from government. Those, of course, have mostly ended, so our grants have declined quite substantially, but our overall revenue has gone up. So our total revenue is up by 28%, and of course, costs have also increased. This is due to increased labor rates, not only the minimum wage, but as I said, the living wage rates. We have more staff, we're delivering more programs, so that means our wage costs have gone up substantially. And like every other business, we've seen costs increase in every other aspect of our business. But the bottom line, according to our audited statements, is a net income of about $5,000. What this statement does not show is something that happened late last summer, early fall, when we had to do some significant repairs to our pool surface. So we did have to draw on our reserves to cover the costs of that, and that's not yet shown in that statement. Next slide looks at our budget for this coming year. This is an internal budget, so it doesn't have amortization, things like that in. We're looking at a projected income of earned revenue of $812,000. The fee for service that you give us of $70,000 brings our total revenue to $882,000. Our expenses are expected to be about $923,000, so we are forecasting a deficit of about $40,000. But I think there's some important factors that we need to look at in this list. First of all, your contribution of $70,000 represents just 8% of our costs. So we are recovering 92% of our costs from the income that we earn from the users of the facilities, and some other small grants that we get, including things like Canada Summer Jobs. We actually return close to $50,000 of that money, that $70,000, to the county in the form of property taxes and payments for sewer and water. And as I mentioned before, wages and direct program costs, which is mostly wages, are by far our largest cost. A couple of other notes to the budget. The budget is very conservative. Our treasurer believes in being conservative, so we are very conservative on both the revenue and the expense side. And in fact, as of the end of December, we are already running ahead of budget from a net income point of view. We do have funds to cover the operating loss if necessary, but we are working on initiatives to increase members and program participants. Some challenges, like many other business, staffing, finding and keeping staff is very, very challenging. Given staffing issues, it's hard to plan programs a long way in advance. As I mentioned, we have increasing costs in all aspects of our operation. Anyone who has driven by PEFAC will notice the parking issues, that we are sort of at capacity in terms of parking. And as I mentioned, we've had some issues with pool maintenance. Moving forward, we're starting to embark on a long-term planning process. This is something we had talked about pre-COVID, but of course COVID sort of put that on hold. The first thing we did as a board was to establish a long-term vision, a 25-year-old vision of a not-for-profit corporation owning and operating an aquatic fitness, recreation, and wellness facility in Prince Edward County, supported by its users, community organizations, together with a significant municipal contribution. Our vision provides for this facility to serve all residents and visitors to our community. And we are very pleased that we have established this, and we are starting on a long-term planning process. Our first step in this is to retain some professional expertise to help the board with the information we need to make some decisions, such as what can be done on the existing property. Do we have room to add things like a gymnasium or do some major upgrades of the existing elements? As we go through this, we will be identifying and considering the priorities in the county's recreation master plan. We're also talking with your staff in ways we can partner on long-term planning. Once we have this basic information, the board will be able to make some decisions about what our next steps are. In conclusions, we have fully recovered from the impacts of COVID-19, and we're now able to plan for the future. We have seen growing demand for our facility and our services, not only in numbers of users, but in the frequency of use by the people that are coming to PEFAC. Your fee-for-service that you provide us is critical to our ongoing operations as we provide this important recreation service for the community, and we thank you for your ongoing support. And I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thanks very much, Sue. As usual, great presentation. Very succinct, easy to understand. Thank you. Questions from members of council? Councilor Panel.
Thank you for your deputation. I'm just curious, it sounds like for people within the county that can obtain base 31 and yourself, how does that cost of your operation compare to, say, Belleville or Quinte West, who deal with the YMCA?
Through you, Your Worship, to Council Panel, we're a very different operation because we have a pool as well as fitness facilities. So, and it's hard to compare us to Belleville facilities because they lump a lot of other things under their budget. So they would have the ice rink, or the YMCA has a lot of children's daycare type programs. So it's like comparing apples and oranges. I do know a few years ago we were able to compare ourselves to a facility in Amherstburg that was costing, now I could be wrong here, but I believe it was costing them $600,000 a year just to run a pool. And we run a lot more than a pool.
Okay.
Quick follow-up?
Follow-up?
Yeah, I guess the other question is, because I represent people from the northern end, and I think the kids in the schools have had a wonderful opportunity, but there's a lot of people that migrate to Trenton, migrate to Belleville. Is there anything you can look at in the future that might perhaps bring those people back to home? And the thing I'm hearing is the cost difference.
That's part of it. It's very difficult because they're going to Trenton and Belleville for a lot of their other services as well. So it's very difficult to convince them to come this direction when they're going to Belleville for groceries and all those types of things.
Thank you.
I believe our swimming lessons do some of that, though.
Okay. Councilor Branderhorst.
Hi, no specific question, but just a thank you. I know some of what you were saying was implemented were hopes of mine from last year, so it's really nice to see that coming through and your work and dedication as not only you, but a board and your staff members really pulling through. I think I've said this before, but I'll say it every year. I really appreciate the home that you make at PEFAC for so many members of our community, either new members or members that have been there for a long time, to feel safe and find community and to have access to memberships that maybe they wouldn't have in another community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Grasso.
Thank you. Is there any financial aid for maybe some families that want to join and are not able to afford the monthly fee or the yearly fee?
For you, Your Worship, yes, we do have an assistance program. So anyone that cannot afford our membership or our program can approach our general manager and with her work through and determine how much they can actually afford to pay. So we do get a little bit of support from the Rotary Club in Wellington towards that program, and any other costs we cover ourselves. I should also mention, which I forgot to mention earlier, is that we also provide, in support of the physician recruitment program, a free membership for 3 years to new physicians and their families coming into the county as a contribution to that important initiative.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more questions, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the deputation, please? Mover and a seconder to receive Councillor McNaughton, Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you. This is the McNaughton-Hirsch motion that the deputation by Sue Mathieu, Secretary, Prince Edward Fitness and Aquatic Centre, Board of Directors to address council regarding PEFAC annual update be received.
Thanks. Those in favor? And that carries. Thanks very much, Sue.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Move to 9.2, deputation from Tanya Marie Logan. No. Okay, welcome.
I don't have one. I don't know. Yeah. Testing. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Welcome.
Pardon me?
Welcome, Tanya Marie.
Oh, well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is... Sorry?
You've got 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to probably be under that. I'll probably talk too fast. Okay. Maybe I should say my Bob Barker moment first. Please spay and neuter your pets and support your local Loyalist Humane Society, just in case I forget at the end. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tanya Logan. I'm a resident of Cherry Valley. I'm here this evening to speak about Partners for Climate Protection, PCP program. Our municipality was signed onto this initiative in 2021, and while the intentions behind it may seem commendable, there are several concerns. Am I talking too loud?
No.
Oh.
No, if I could just interrupt for 1
Certainly.
second. Okay, we're fine. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. I have been known to talk loud. Okay, I don't want to give you a mic. Okay.
No, you're fine, go
I
ahead.
thought you were going to tell me to tone it down. All right. Okay. I'll go back to my last sentence there. While the intentions behind it may seem commendable, there are several concerns that warrant closer consideration. One key issue is the significant cost of participation, which requires the allocation of manpower, resources, to collect extensive data, primarily focused on measuring energy consumption and waste from community municipal assets. Additionally, it is important to highlight that when this program was adopted in 2021, the agreement was signed by the Council and Mayor, while the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, and the federal government disclaimed all liability related to this program and its implementation. This raises serious questions about transparency and whether such commitments aimed at net zero by 2050 align with the specific needs of our rural community. In December, I met with our environmental officer, and he provided insight into the implementation process, including data collection requirements and the completion of the program's 5 milestones. During our discussion, it became clear that grants and funding opportunities still remain available even without participation in the PCP program. Notably, our environmental officer was unaware that this initiative originates from United Nations, an unelected international body, and ICLEI, little-known entity which our council is now partnered with through this program. This raises concerns regarding the council's due diligence in entering such agreements. The program, developed under the influence of United Nations, has received millions of dollars of Canadian taxpayers' funding from Canadian taxpayers. As responsible residents contributing to this funding through our taxes, it is our right to question how these resources are being allocated and whether the expected benefits truly justify the costs. Furthermore, the Ontario Municipal Act of 2001 obligates our council to critically assess the financial and operation implications of all programs. In this instance, however, it appears that a thorough, independent assessment has been lacking. We recommend that the council undertake a full cost assessment of this program's implementation in our municipality, and I feel that it's a reasonable request and one that the Township of Tiny has recently committed to. I would like to emphasize that I am not suggesting that we neglect the importance of environmental stewardship in our community. On the contrary, I'm advocating for a more transparent, accountable, community-focused approach that better reflects the unique needs of our municipality, Rather than adhering to a one-size-fits-all program, we should prioritize localized practical initiatives tailored to our specific challenges and opportunities, especially considering that our region is already a net carbon sink for the province of Ontario. If you look at the graph charts that were handed out, the graph 1 shows that Canada is listed as 2% of the world's emissions, carbon emissions, 2%. So if you look at the pie chart, we are very, very small. Yet the graph 2 shows that we are second in the world for collecting carbon tax at the rate of $7.8 million per year. That's pretty significant that we are paying such a high tax rate for climate when we could readily accept or initiate something that's more locally environmentally friendly. I fear that the end game for completing the 5 milestone data collection for the greenhouse emissions is working towards Agenda 2050. Our community possesses valuable knowledge and innovative ideas that could foster meaningful environmental improvements. For example, instead of directing resources towards emission tracking, we could invest in year-round food production. This could be accomplished with the addition of greenhouses, having a seed sharing program so that people could benefit having the ability to grow their own food using organic heirloom seeds. This would help support our local food banks tremendously. Plant additional fruit trees to enhance our food bank as well as carbon absorption. Sustainable landscaping. Encourage residents to use native plants in their yards and common areas. Such initiatives would help to maintain our bee populations. Urban green spaces, transform neglected space into green areas like rooftop gardens, community parks. The more green spaces that we have, the more carbon capture. This is what our trees and our plant life does for us. It captures the carbon. Educational workshops, provide educational workshops on sustainable living. As an example, something very simple, I recently participated in a Soldiers On program that is designed and developed for veterans, which I am a veteran, and I signed up for a course as simple as making sourdough bread. It's chemically free, 4 ingredients, tasty, and I've managed to incorporate many friends in my circle and my own family that have taken it on as a wonderful hobby. So things like that to help people with food sustainability, which I feel is a very important issue during these times and hardships where people are struggling. They're struggling with rents, shelter, they're struggling with food, and we really need to make that a priority as opposed to collecting greenhouse emissions. Zero plastic waste initiatives, funding local projects to develop solutions to prevent plastic from entering our environment, promoting people to use reusable water bottles, cut buying cases of drinking water in plastic bottles. We can also develop other homegrown solutions that directly benefit our citizens. This is a statement that would require feedback by sharing ideas that would come from our community. One way to assure success would be to have a survey, ask our citizens how we can improve our environment by using the vast talents, the knowledge, the experience, and ensuring we have input from our seniors who also have a lifetime of knowledge. These initiatives could offer tangible, measurable results while fostering a sense of local ownership and engagement. We need bylaws that oversee how we're going to introduce environmental innovation in new home builds, that we ensure that developers are investing in greener technology when they are developing subdivisions. We need to have conversations that heating technology such as geothermal, solar panels, this technology contributes to less emissions, long-term investment to save money on heating and electricity. Water is also a part of our environment. Let's talk about our water. I'm not sure, last time I was here, we were still discussing water containment for our fluoride. Is that still a thing? Has that been, can anybody answer that? There was a $300,000 price tag on that.
No, just please proceed.
Okay, I can proceed? Okay. So, from the National, I just want to say, from the National Library of Medicine within PubMed Central, I'm just going to read a small portion about fluoride exposure. Fluoride exposure is thought to have short-term, long-term effects, especially exposure occurring critical points in development, There's a concern that chronic low-level fluoride exposure could lead to lifelong deficits in future mental health issues. They also postulated that fluoride could be producing alterations in mitochondrial DNA, as well as bone density loss over long periods of time, and that especially reaches us as we age. And I'm aging. I don't know how my bone is doing, but anyways, I've been subjected to fluoride in my water. Luckily, I have well water now.
One minute.
Pardon me?
1 minute left.
1 minute? Holy. Okay, I better skip here. Wow, I thought I was going to be. Okay. At this time, municipalities across the country are re-evaluating their involvement in externally driven climate programs, recognizing the hidden financial administrative burdens they impose. Any funds allocated to net zero initiatives while other essential services remain unmet, property taxes continue to rise, contradict the duties and responsibilities of municipal councillors to represent the interests of the people. It is our position that the council should consider withdrawing from the Partners for Climate Protection program and instead develop a more holistic, community-driven alternative that provides real value to our residents. To further explore this issue, we are pleased to introduce our special guest speaker, Maggie Braun, who has been speaking to municipal governments across Canada on this very subject. Her extensive research and experience will provide valuable insights and an informative perspective for our council's consideration. Thank you for your time and attention to this important matter.
Okay.
Thank you
very much, Tanya Marie. I'll see if there are any questions from members of council. Anybody? No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Need a mover and a seconder to receive the deputation. Councillor Harrison and Councillor Branderhorst.
This is a Harrison Branderhorst motion that the deputation by Tanya Marie Logan regarding the county's participation in the Partners for Climate Protection program be received.
Thank you. Those in favor? 1, 3, 4. Did you take account, Madam Clerk? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Okay, that carries. It's come to my attention. Is somebody videotaping back there or recording this? Okay, that is not appropriate given our procedural bylaw, unless a member of council wants to waive the procedural bylaw. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Your Worship, council may permit someone to record a portion or all of the meeting, but it must be done by resolution.
Right. So
the
is there a resolution that this would be brought forward by a member of council?
Yes, the resolution would actually say that in accordance with section 514 of the procedure bylaw, council permit members of the public to record this meeting in accordance with the live streaming policy and procedure.
Okay, so we need a mover and a seconder for that. And then a vote?
That's right.
Okay, is there a mover and a seconder to allow recording of this meeting? Don't see anyone, so that fails, and I would ask you not to record, please. Thank you. So we'll move to 9.3. And Maggie Braun, who was pre-announced by Tanya. Welcome, Maggie.
Welcome. I'm just going to wait for my clicker.
And
I guess thank you for welcoming me. Not welcome. Sorry about the videotaping. We somewhat asked permission beforehand, but it didn't go through there.
Have you got your
I'm just waiting for the clicker now.
gizmo?
My gizmo. It's really great to be here tonight.
Okay, I'll remind you, you've got 10 minutes.
Great to be here tonight in Prince Edward County. It's a pleasure to come to rural counties across Canada and share this information that is really seems to be lacking in the conversation around environmental policies. in Canadian municipalities. So my name is Maggie Braun. I'm speaking on behalf of Kickley Canada and on behalf of over 70 residents who have signed a petition regarding concerns of the financial burden, the lack of transparency, and the misalignment of local priorities with the county's participation in the FCM ICLEI Partners for Climate Protection Program. Now, I'm not going to assume that everyone on the council knows what the Partners for Climate Protection Program is. Your community signed on to this program. Let me just go here. It's a program offered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It is in partnership with an organization called ICLEI, or the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. That organization was founded by the United Nations in 1990, and working together with the FCM, ICLEI and the FCM worked together to actually draft Agenda 21. So the documents that were agreed to and signed in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 were drafted by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, an organization that once very much represented the local governments across Canada, brought you all together so you could collaborate and network. That organization has since reversed its focus from being a local voice to federal government to being an international voice to local government. So we see now the programs being offered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities are all in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Very interesting. We are starting to see rural counties across Canada actually withdrawing their membership from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, recognizing that it's no longer offering programs that are beneficial to their rural counties or small towns. So just a bit of background on that. So the Prince Edward County, you adopted a program called the Partners for Climate Protection Program in 2021. It's a 5-milestone program, so I'll explain that. But you are currently on milestone 2 of that program. So the 5 milestones are, first, there's a large data collection. So there's an extensive data collection where they look at your energy consumption and your waste from all sectors and sources. So all your municipal buildings and operations, but also the community as well. Once that is completed, you move to milestone 2, and that is setting reduction targets. So what we traditionally see is anywhere from 20 to 50% by 2030, and then net zero by 2050. I'm sure you've heard that talked about before, and for your county, that is what milestone you're on right now. That is in progress. You're in the midst of setting reduction targets. Milestone 3 is where you develop a climate action plan, and milestone 4 is where you adopt and start implementing the climate action plan, and milestone 5 is where you monitor and track progress, so you continue with the data collection to see how much energy consumption and waste you've been able to mitigate. This is a climate mitigation program. So for the context of Prince Edward County, it's really important that we look at these programs from a regional context to see if it's worth our participation. You have, I believe, about 25,000 residents, so a fairly low population in the county, and you cover just over 100 hectares of land, primarily small towns surrounded by agriculture, rural landscapes, and conservation areas. So in this presentation, and I'm just getting started, we'll cover the duty of council to ensure programs align with local needs, the lack of legal obligation for Ontario municipalities to adopt net zero programs, issues of liability, differences between the Ontario Energy Report and the PCP program, financial implications, data collection concerns, Ontario's carbon negative advantage, and local priorities under the municipal mandate that require urgent attention and funding over net zero programs. So the duty of council. Under Section 224 of the Ontario Municipal Act, it is the council's responsibility to represent the public and consider the well-being and interests of the municipality. Also, it is the council's duty to independently evaluate municipal policies and programs while ensuring accountability and transparency. This duty rests on councils, municipal councils alone. Nobody else in this county can do this job and opt in and out of these programs. So this council's independent assessment of programs like the PCP is required to ensure that it does align with your local needs. This is not the duty of staff or consultants or external organizations. It is the duty of council. And we just want to empower you, just like other councils are starting to question these programs, to if you have questions about these programs, raise them and have that debate within your council. So, the legal context. It's really important to note that there is no legal obligation for municipalities in Canada to adopt net zero targets or implement these programs. The Paris Agreement applies only to the national governments, not municipalities. So despite the Paris Accord being mentioned in the joining resolution of this program and stating that municipalities are essential to its successful implementation, it's not, the Paris Agreement is not an agreement that binds municipalities or they are not signatories of that agreement. The federal legislation, such as the Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act, sets national targets and does not mandate municipal compliance. So municipalities are not legislated under federal obligations either. The Ontario climate policies, such as the Made in Ontario Environment Plan, are advisory and grant municipalities full discretion to determine your own environmental strategies. Local environmental strategies are what was traditionally adopted before these programs. So again, participation in this program is completely voluntary, and Prince Edward County has the authority to opt in or out of this program with no legal repercussions for opting out. So we'll move on to the accountability and liability issues. There is a significant concern with the PCP's program, explicit waiver of liability. So this program, again, is administered by the FCM in partnership with ICLEI and funded by the federal government. All of these entities have waived liability, disclaimed liability for their program. It is on the program website, although it is not stated in the joining resolution that was put before this council in 2021. The waiver of liability was not presented to you for information to consider when you adopted the program. So what does that mean? It means that these organizations accept no responsibility for the outcomes of this program. So they're pushing it, but they won't accept responsibility for it. If the program costs exceed the projections, the financial burden falls entirely on the municipality and your taxpayers. If the program fails to deliver results or causes disputes, the liability is on the municipality and the taxpayers here.
Got 1 minute left, Maggie.
So some examples are recently in Huntsville. They have this program running. They purchased electric school buses. The buses caught on fire. The local firefighters have no way of putting out these fires. They have to let the entire thing burn completely. And this is the kind of risks you take on when you're accepting recommendations to move forward with that program and the cost. So we'll move on. I'm going to skip the Ontario Energy Report. In some cases, councils are being told that this is complementary and will help them with the provincially mandated. If I could ask a motion to extend my presentation by 2 minutes, I'd really appreciate that. So I could get to recommendations.
Remember, if a member of council wants to bring that forward to extend for 2 minutes. Don't see anybody, so carry on for one.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there is a difference between the provincially mandated energy report that is giving information on municipal buildings, not the community, and that's for the provincial power grid, and it's in my report. Also, the program is marketed as free to participate. They don't mention any costs. Nobody's doing any cost assessment on the program, and we do find that the program can cost anywhere from $8 million to $212 million, and that's a very conservative estimate to run this program. Some municipalities are spending, like Calgary, $84 billion, but of course a different context, bigger city, but still the program is not free as advertised, right? It does cost a lot of money to implement. And I guess I will jump down to that. You can see the screen there. There is a lot of data that is being collected. A lot of people don't know that their daily energy and consumption and waste habits, even your staff, they don't know that data is being collected, so there's that. And also the fact that the data is being collected and handed over to third parties that are then coming back with recommendations for you to purchase their products suggests that there's some ethical concerns and that this data is being collected for profit.
Can you wrap up, please?
Of course. So lastly, in Ontario, when we look at our carbon advantage, our population is putting out, based on our population, about 200 million tons of CO2 annually. And our forests, wetlands, and peatlands are absorbing about 900 million tons annually. So that means that net zero programs are, in a sense, out of context with our environmental reality that we have here. And net zero programs don't take into account any pre-existing carbon sinks. So that's a problem with the program right there. And it also calls into question if all of that money being spent on this program is the proper use of your funds, especially when under the municipal mandate, your council's responsibility has certain things that the municipal governments are to oversee, and global sustainable development targets and net zero are not part of the municipal mandate. So any funds being directed to that program are at the expense of rising property taxes and local programs is a misdirection of funds. And therefore, we're recommending that you...
Maggie, I've got to ask you to wrap this up. We've all got the presentation, by the way, as part of the agenda package.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I'll wrap it up then. In conclusion, we would like you to pause and reevaluate the program, direct staff to do a full cost assessment of past expenditures and future projections, collaborate with us on an emissions and sequestration report using GIS data from the county. We can calculate your carbon sinks and your population emissions. Withdraw the county's climate emergency declaration if emissions are offset by sequestration. Focus on local stewardship, preserving your natural carbon sinks, and withdraw from the Partners for Climate Protection program to redirect funds towards pressing local priorities.
Okay, thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see if any members of council have any questions. Councillor Branderhorst?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question on what have other municipalities that have left this program done with the increase in funding or the diverging of funding?
Well, I think we're already facing a lack of funding towards community programs in general. So what they're doing is just redirecting their funds towards filling in the gaps where there's already a lack of funding.
Follow up.
But are they putting them through to the recommendations that have been laid forward, or are they not moving forward with, I like that it's moving money from green to green, but are they actually moving forward with those initiatives? Do you know?
So far, the city of Thorold has withdrawn from the program, citing really the fact that they already have, the taxpayers are already paying federal carbon tax, provincial carbon tax, and a regional carbon tax. And by adopting the program locally, that would just add another layer of funds being directed towards those initiatives. So they just found that they didn't have the administrative capacity to support this extensive data collection, and they just weren't comfortable with having more money being directed towards these initiatives. And they found it wasn't within the municipal mandate to be focusing on this. And yes, they are looking at the local environmental stewardship programs that they can do. Yeah, absolutely.
Council panel?
Are you familiar with the publication Others?
Yes.
Do you subscribe to that?
I don't subscribe to it. No, I do see it at the local shops quite often, and I know that they have run articles on various different topics that are outside the normal window of conversation.
Thank you.
Councillor McNaughton.
Thank you.
We'll move on.
I thank you for
Question?
your presentation, and thank you for being here on a snowy day, because I think you had probably a bit of a drive.
Did.
So I just want to clarify some what I think are misunderstandings about the program, which I have studied quite a bit and have sort of made it a point to learn about it. And I'm the council appointee.
Okay.
But I think there's what you've presented and what I understand are quite different. And I just wanted to sort of clarify my understanding, which is on one hand, sort of what we were hearing from Tanya was desirable to have programs that would encourage things like heat pumps and geothermal heat and increased investment in our green assets, in our natural assets. And this is kind of just, and a program that needs public consultation, needs to be bought in by the public, needs to be consulted to the public and receive sort of a picture of the public's interest. And I think that's what this does. It just provides the framework. So any costs that we undertake are part of our regular budgeting process. Any investment that we make in any new infrastructure or replacement infrastructure that uses less energy is potentially a cost saver. Yeah. So there's no sort of like forced mandate to do anything. The program is voluntary. We step out any time. It just provides the framework. So it's a scaffold, it's a plan or a methodology more, and access to experts. So if there's a question about fleets in Calgary, our sustainability coordinator can be connected with someone immediately. So I don't think there's any data collection that's made public that's not already public. I don't think there's any privacy risk. I don't think there is no additional taxation, unless suddenly our entire fleet blows up and we have to buy a new one. That's not going to happen. There's a lot of cost-benefit analysis involved. I think if we're measuring what we do properly, we can be looking for stronger life cycle cost benefits. So I think you've heard this from other municipalities, that there are cost benefits potentially, and the risks outlined aren't necessarily accurate. For example, we don't if we receive funds to do a project, the funding body, whether it's the provincial government or a grant or something, they're not going to share liability with us. We're receiving funds and using them within our purview. And so it's our liability. If we plant more trees, it's our liability. If we, buy a new vehicle, it's our liability. So I think perhaps it would be good to ensure that you're presenting an accurate picture going forward.
If I can, through the worship,
No,
respond?
No, it's not we don't debate, do your deputation and we ask questions, make comments. Anybody else on council have a comment or a question? Okay, I will say, first of all, thank you for the 2 deputations. But for the benefit of the observers here in the room and those watching this meeting at home, I want to remind everyone that council unanimously approved its strategic plan in August 29th, 2023. That plan includes a pillar of rising to the challenge of climate change. And one of the main objectives under that pillar is implementing the plan resulting from the work with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Partners in Climate Protection Program. That pillar and others in the Strat Plan were informed by broad public consultation during the development of the 10-year community plan. And we heard from the public, I'll say loud and clear, that addressing climate change is clearly a local priority that demands action from the local government, our businesses, and our residents. So with that, thank you for the deputations, and need a mover and a seconder to receive Maggie's deputation. Councillor St. Jean, is there a seconder? Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Your Worship. St. Jean Nyman, motion that the deputation by Maggie Braun regarding county's participation in the Partners for Climate Protection Program be received.
Thank you. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that carries. Okay, thank you very much, Maggie. So we'll move now to comments from the audience. I've got one pre-registrant, and Jane Leslie. Is Jane here? Jane is here. Okay, Jane, welcome. We've got 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. There we go. Thank you so much. Good evening, members of council, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jane Leslie. I'm a resident of Picton. I have read the deputations by Ms. Logan and Ms. Braun, proposing we withdraw from the Partners for Climate Protection Program, which is sponsored by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Their proposals make no economic sense. What Ms. Braun failed to tell you is that her organization, KICLI, is advocating that municipalities not only withdraw from PCP, but from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities itself. And while we're at it, her website also notes that she doesn't believe in climate change. Now, Ms. Braun may not believe in climate change, but the insurance industry sure does. My insurance policy renewal for my home in Picton this month took the deductible for water damage up from $1,000 to $2,500. I have never made a claim. And yesterday, the insurance industry magazine Canadian Underwriter announced that a climate risk score for Canadian properties is in the works, which I think is great. Ms. Braun would have you believe the entire Canadian insurance industry has been bamboozled. And while we're at it, Aaron McNichol is not the county's environmental officer, as Ms. Logan puts it. He is the county's director of corporate and legislative affairs. He's also a certified general accountant and has worked as treasurer for another municipality. Page 8 of Ms. Braun's presentation, page 33 of today's agenda, cites financial costs attributed to the PCP program that seem conjured out of thin air. Where do the numbers come from? There are no sources. How are they broken down? What do they apply to? I am a public member of the Audit Committee for Prince Edward County. I am confident that if these program costs were occurring as Ms. Braun suggests, that Aaron would have brought them to the committee and to council's attention. He has not. Ms. Logan suggests that withdrawing from the PCP program would not put our grant funding at risk. I have no doubt that council members like me have done grant adjudication. Imagine you work for the $2.4 billion Green Municipal Fund. 2 municipalities come to you competing for funding. Not everyone gets a grant. One has a business case backed up by data. They can tell you what the environmental impact will be, and they can also often tell you how their operating costs will fall should they get the grant. The other municipality comes in mumbling it has no data, just guesstimates. I don't know about you, but which municipality would you give the grant to? Mr. Mayor, last Friday you called for the federal government to provide more funding to the county. I support your request. The federal government funds the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the same federal government that announced $6 billion for a housing infrastructure fund in November.
30 seconds, Jane.
Tell me, would the federal government give you the time of day if we were no longer a member of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities? Writing off the FCM virtually guarantees we won't have other sources of funding, and so it guarantees an increase in property taxes. Thanks, but no thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Are there any questions for Jane Leslie from members of council? Nope. Okay, I'll ask if anybody in the audience wants to make a comment. Sir, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Jeff Wielden. I work just around the corner on Main Street here at eCourt Realty. But I am a resident of Brighton and a member of Brighton Council. I'm not here representing council tonight. I'll leave that to Mayor Ostrander. But I did just want to comment that when I was elected to council, I was immediately interested in sustainability and climate action, and I looked around to our neighbors to see who was acting. When I first attended the FCM Sustainable Communities Conference, the first people I met there were Councillor McNaughton and Director McNichol. I have been looking to Prince Edward County to see what you're up to over the last 2.5 years on council, and I look to you as leaders. So keep up the good work. I love what you're doing. Note that Northumberland County is also a member of PCP, so is Belleville, Kingston, Loyalist Township. You know, not all of our councils were asleep at the wheel when we agreed to this program. So thank you for your good work so far. And in a few weeks, I'm headed to FCM Sustainable Communities Conference again, specifically because there's a program there on regional collaboration toward climate goals. And so I'm hoping to get more information on how we can better work together because we have so much in common in our regional climate. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions? No? Okay, anybody else in the audience want to come forward? Sir.
Yes, hi, my name's Ian Beveridge. I'm just asking, you may not agree with everything that's been said tonight, and I understand that, but also you have due diligence to do a study, an accurate study that's been offered to you to find out how much this program costs. And I, for one, would love to know. And I think, you know, you may look at it and say, oh, it's fine, we're good. But you also may look at it and say, you know, over the years, this is going to cost us a lot of money. And as a taxpayer, and you guys are always trying to keep the taxes down, I think that's just doing your due diligence to actually put forward a motion to do a study on this. If you're going to have your staff spend hours and hours and hours accumulating information and data, that costs money. That's staff time doing something that, is it going to help us? I mean, you had a lot of good suggestions from Tanya of where you could allocate funds. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to have the full scope of information. So.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Any questions, Mr. Beveridge? No? Okay, anybody else in the audience want to make a comment? 3-minute comment? No? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the comments from the audience, please? Councillor Branderhorst, Councillor McNaughton.
This is a Branderhorst McNaughton motion that comments from the audience be received.
Thank you. Those in favor? And that carries. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to those members of the public who came forward, and thank you again for the deputations and for attending. So we'll move now to item 11, items for consideration. We'll move to item 11.1. If we could have a mover and a seconder, let's put this on the floor. Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Councillor Engelsdorf.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. This is the St. Jean Engelsdorfer motion. The council receive, yes, that's the right one. The council received report CSP 02-2025 that council resolved to declare a portion of a parcel of municipal land, specifically part of the Queen Elizabeth Park, located on Hill Street, Picton, described as Part 2 of 47R 9481 and part of PIN 55070-0115 LT as surplus to the needs of the municipality for the purpose of conveyance to Richard Raymond LaRose and Lori Sybil Catford LaRose, and subject to a parcel of land being transferred to the municipality. That council authorize transfer of portion of Queen Elizabeth Park, Hill Street, Picton, described as Part 2 of 47R 9481, part of PIN 55070-0115 LT to Richard Raymond LaRose and Lori Sybil Catford LaRose. That council authorize the acceptance of a portion of land containing Fairfield Street, described as Parts 3 and 4 of 47R 94181, part of PIN 55070-0034 LT, and that council approve the bylaw as listed on this agenda to authorize the land exchange agreement between the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward and Richard Raymond LaRose and Lori Sybil Catford LaRose.
Great, thank you very much. We have the director here. Do you want to provide any kind of a overview, Madam Director?
Through the chair, through the mayor, I have an overview. It's short and sweet. In 2020, when an application for a minor variance for 14 Hill Street was submitted, it was discovered that the county had a historical right-of-way over Fairfield Street. However, it was not the owner of the land under the road. It's beneficial for the county to own this parcel because we cannot install anything underground if we wanted to, any infrastructure of any kind, because we don't own that portion of the road. Therefore, in open session on May 12, 2020, Council approved the request to exchange lands authorized by delegated authority during the COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to exchanging the lands, Queen Elizabeth Park title had to be cleared. It was registered to the Prince Edward Yacht Club. It took some time to correct that title, so lots of work needed to be done before this could come forward. Now that's all completed. So should council approve this, we will order a new reference plan and we will finalize the exchange of lands, and you can see the paperwork on the attachments. And hopefully I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Harrison?
Trying to get a grip of this a little bit in looking at the sheet I have here, parcel 14, which is this is going to be added to, according to what I'm looking at here.
Let me have a look here.
That the park's going to be added to, or piece of the park's going to be added to.
That's correct.
How did it come about between what I've got here and I went by and looked at this parcel that there was a house built that with, I would have to say, awful close to 100% lot coverage, plus part of the house is already on the park.
Through the chair to Councillor Harrison, so I can't answer about the house that was built on that parcel, but I can tell you that we have done the surveys and the reference plans, and this parcel of property is not currently theirs. Their house is not on it, and we are swapping it with that portion of the road that they own.
But the new house, part of it is on that.
Not the, I mean, if we look at the reference plan, and I am not a expert in reference plans, but as far as I know, staff has done a great deal of research. They've worked with our internal departments, they've worked with external surveyors, and I believe that this is.
So I guess actually
sorry, I was just going to interrupt you to say that this map is never 100%. So these lines are not exactly, the lines on this map that you're looking at right now, the colored image, is not exact.
Well, basically, there's two issues, and I'm not sure they're in your ballpark. This might be for planning, but I've had cases before where people, if they're building another home, there's a maximum lot coverage on that lot, or they have to build on the same footprint. and I've never seen anything like this before. We build 100%.
Okay. Councillor
If
Nyman.
somebody shed light on it, it's fine with me.
Councillor Nyman.
Not if they
Thank
see
you,
it.
Mr. Mayor. So, I guess for me, I guess if lot 14 owned down to the edge of the road, I'm wondering why lot 12 didn't do the same thing. And I guess the question is, are we sure that what's behind number 12 was owned by the owners of lot 14?
Can you ask me that last part again, sorry, through the chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at 12, but the last part of your question was...
Yeah, so are we sure that the parcel of the road that's behind 12 is under the ownership of 14?
Yes. The part in orange is all currently under the ownership of the owner of Lot 14.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions? No. Councillor Panel?
If there's any doubt whatsoever on this, I would not choose to make a decision until the facts are clear. Perhaps we have them now.
Okay, Madam CAO?
Through the chair to Councillor Pennell and the rest of council, there's a reason it's taken 2 years to bring this back. We have explored this thoroughly, and it has taken quite a lot to untangle why everything was split this way. For Councillor Harrison's point about how they did lot coverage and how they were able to get an approval for that, we certainly can dig back in and find out, was there a minor variance or what happened? But what we're faced with right now is that the house is where the house is. But we certainly can follow up to see if there's some planning trail there as to why that decision was made. The decision before you right now is to give us control back for the underground of the roadway, and we feel that the portion of the park we're giving up is relatively unusable and worth the exchange, and is I would say that as the director pointed out, the whole park, we didn't even own the park for a while because we had to make a deal with the yacht club over that one. So we've been maintaining a park we didn't even have full control over. So this whole area has been a very tangled mess that has taken 2 full years and lots of legal time to untangle. So I feel very confident in the report in front of you. Even though we can't explain how we got here, this is the way out of it.
Okay. More questions? I'll call last question to you.
Yeah, I just have, this is very complicated, and I think if people have questions, before we start swapping land here, we need to get the answers. So just want to get that out there first. So was the land, I guess, the whole park, I guess it was owned by the yacht club, and I guess my understanding, and I could be wrong, but if land is donated for open space, it has to go back to whoever donated that land. So are we saying that the yacht club donated this parcel of land to the county?
Through the chair to Councillor Nyman, the ownership and title of Queen Elizabeth Park was satisfied. The county owns that parcel. That's all been satisfied in another file. And so now, knowing that we own that park, we have the right to give up that portion of the park in order to obtain land underneath the road that we need and is necessary for underground waterworks.
Okay. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I guess it isn't that I have an issue with the swap. Where I'm going to have the issue is that when people come to me and they've got a lot and it's got a house on it, and they're told that yes, you can build another house on that if you build on that footprint. So this has a potential setting, I can't say a precedent, but certainly very hard to explain when a person says, well, how come they can do 100% lot coverage and we have no trace of a minor variance or anything here? And when you start telling them, oh, you've got to have a minor variance, you've got to do this, got to do that, and that doesn't comply, and they turn and say to you, well, how come it didn't apply there? That's my question about this particular thing. I'm not against it, don't get me wrong, the swap may be fine and everything else, but this is a very, very unusual situation in my opinion.
Through the mayor, I would just like to emphasize and maybe correct something I said, Councillor Harrison. I'm not saying that we have no information. We just don't have it right here with us. So because the issue before council is not the original planning decision that gave the House a lot of lot coverage was not part of this report. We just don't have those facts. So it's not that we can't find them. We just didn't bring them. So we will go back and look for that as outcome of today's meeting and make sure that council understands the context under which that decision was made. But it predates the decision in front of you right now.
A while back.
Follow-up being that, okay, I understand, and probably with this addition, it's going to help in terms of the lot coverage. I understand that, but that's which comes first here, the chicken or the egg sort of thing. Thank you.
Okay, more questions? All those in favor, please show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 7. 7? 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that carries. Okay, so we'll move to 11.2. Could have a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor, please.
Point of order,
Do some
Mr.
reading.
Mayor. At the beginning, we had Councillor Baynard on the screen. Is she still part of the meeting or not?
I think if she, looks like the connection has been lost. I've been looking for her as well.
Okay.
And
Just
looks
wanted
like
to
the
clarify
connection's lost.
that, because it can make a difference on both.
Okay, can we have a mover and a seconder for 11.2? Put it on the floor, please, and do some reading. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Nyman, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a Nyman panel motion. The council will receive report HD 01-2025. The council approved the designation bylaw as listed on this agenda for the property owned by the Prince Edward County Affordable Housing Corporation, known municipally as 30 Disraeli Street, Picton, as a municipal capital facility as permitted under Section 110 of the Municipal Act as amended in Ontario Regulation 603-06 as amended. That council approved the designation bylaw as listed on this agenda for the property owned by Nicholas Homes Limited, located on the west side of Nicholas Street near Cumberland Street, Picton, as a municipal capital facility as permitted under Section 110 of the Municipal Act as amended, and Ontario Regulation 603-06 as amended. The council approved the designation bylaw as listed on this agenda for the property owned by 1133 County Road 5 Inc., known municipally as 1133 County Road 5, Picton, as a municipal capital facility as permitted under Section 110 of the Municipal Act as amended, and Ontario Regulation 603-06 as amended. That council authorize the Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Finance and IT Treasurer to execute the municipal capital facilities project agreements substantially in the form attached to each bylaw, exempting the properties from taxation for municipal and school board purposes annually for the duration of the agreement, known municipally as 30 Disraeli Street, the property located on the west side of Nicholas Street near Cumberland Street, Picton, and 1133 County Road 5, Picton.
Thank you. Beautifully read. Okay, and we've got the director here. And you'd like to add, Adam?
Sure, I can summarize, Your Worship, and through you. So this is, it's a bit of a mouthful, the title for this, but we've had in place a municipal capital facilities bylaw for municipal housing project facilities since 2022. This bylaw is a mechanism under the Municipal Act to permit for waiver of property tax as an incentive for the development of affordable housing. Under the bylaw, proponents of affordable housing, and that be whether our own projects through our housing corporation, nonprofit or private sector partners, must agree to provide a specific number of units, and they have to be affordable by our definition over the period of time no less than 20 years. So we're bringing forward 3 such requested designating bylaws and agreements as part of this report tonight. One of them is for the Disraeli Street Picton project. That's the Affordable Housing Corporation's priority project. The Nicholas Homes, which is a private sector developer, also a project here in Picton. And an internal request to streamline an obligation under our lease with 1133 County Road 5 for the Leeward House Transitional Home.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Questions from council members about this? Councillor Engelstorfer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Specifically, the private sector developer, what happens in the event that that developer, for some reason, sells the property? Are we protected there? Does it follow the property, or how does that work?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, you'll notice that the agreement, the proposed agreement with Nicholas Homes Limited, is quite a bit more robust. It's quite a bit longer than the other two, and the reason is that we need to have that rigor. And so the answer is yes. The requirement to maintain those units as affordable over that long-term period will carry through any change of ownership for that project or that property.
Okay. Any other questions?
I got one.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the agreements, Adam, are for 20 years, right? Well, I'm just wondering, does it have to be 20 years? Can it be, 10 years? Or I'm just wondering, does it have to be 20 years?
Through Your Worship, our bylaw that I referenced earlier from 2022 specifies 20 years as the minimum.
Okay. Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Adam, would we imagine at the end of 20 years, when most of us aren't around, that these agreements could be extended again to continue to protect the affordability of the units?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, I think that would be the idea. We would hope to maintain those, forever, essentially. But at least that 20 years will give us an idea of how good these folks are to work with.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a question, just a very brief statement about how this is the very first opportunity for us to actually get involved in a public-private partnership that actually creates affordable housing. This is a 20-year guarantee of the provision of 75 affordable units. I think this is a huge milestone for this community, and I think we should be applauding our staff for having those conversations. I know it helped to have the bylaw in place to make that happen, but I think this is I'm going to call it's a watershed moment for this community. We are finally, with this, going to be able to create truly affordable housing, and I think that's important. I think we all need to recognize that. So thank you, staff, for working diligently on this, and I look forward to this being the first of many P3 partnerships that truly create affordable housing in Prince Edward County.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more questions, all those in favor? And that carries. Okay, so we move now to appointment of councillors for the Affordable Housing Corporation, and we're going to have an election. Maybe. Let's have it was recommended that there are kind of two distinct portions to this. One, the recognition and the appreciation of that, and then the appointment of the two councillors as recommended here. And this looks appropriate to split this in half into the two. Madam Clerk, any thoughts?
Yes, Your Worship, we were suggesting that you do the first two clauses of that motion as a single motion and then hold your nomination process following that.
Okay, so we'll go through the first two clauses, one motion, and then we'll go through the nominating or whatever we need to. Okay, everybody clear on that? So we need a mover and a seconder for the first two clauses, Councillor St. Jean and Councillor Pennell.
Okay, this is a St. Jean panel motion that the resignations of Joyce Barretto, Gunta Mackers, and Catherine Chislett from the Prince Edward County Affordable Housing Corporation be received with regret, that letters of appreciation be sent to Joyce Barretto, Gunta Mackers, and Catherine Chislett.
Okay, questions? Those in favor? And that carries, okay. So now we put this on the floor, Madam Clerk, and go through the nominating process.
Yes, Your Worship, the process is that you will now call for nominations. A councillor can nominate themselves or someone else can nominate them. Following the number of nominations, you will then take the vote on each. If there's only two, then you will move on to your motion.
All right, let's open the floor to nominations. Councillor Pennell.
Quick question. If three people have resigned, we're putting two councillors in. At the third quarter, 2025, we're looking at replacement. Are we going to be replace the original three, or are we in fact going to be replaced only two because that's all we're nominating? And I think it's important to straighten that out.
Yeah, Madam CAO.
Through the chair to Councillor Pennell, the board has the ability to nominate its own board members, and they have up to 11, I think it is, 11 spots. So this is coming out of a recommendation from the last board meeting to ensure they have quorum. They need 2 more seats to have quorum and continue with the business while they do a more fulsome recruiting process. So that's why it's 2. That will still create an odd number of members to make voting simple. And so this allows them to continue, and they can add several more public members later that wouldn't come to council.
Okay. All right, so any open floor nominations? Councillor Nyman?
I nominate Councillor Grosso.
Okay. Councillor Grosso, do you accept the nomination
Yes,
for
I
this
do.
position? Okay. And Councillor St. Jean?
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to nominate Councillor McNaughton.
Okay, Councillor McNaughton, do you accept this nomination?
Yes.
Okay, are there any more nominations? I was just going to bring that up, okay. Those in favor of closing the nominations?
Sorry,
that carries. Oh, Councillor Maynard, did you have a question?
No, I was going to nominate someone, but it's okay. I'm fine. It's good enough.
Okay. Okay, so we have Councillor Grosso and Councillor McNaughton have been appointed to these positions. Congratulations. Okay. So we'll move 2 items for consent. And how many have we got?
Your Worship, we need a motion to the last 2 clauses of that motion, please.
Mover and a seconder for this, Councillor St. Jean and Councillor Engelsdorfer.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. St. Jean Inglesdorf for motion that Councillor Grosso and Councillor McNaughton be appointed as interim board members to the Prince Edward County Affordable Housing Corporation, and that staff and the board begin public recruitment in Q3 2025 with an updated business plan and communications strategy.
Thank you. Those in favor? And that carries. Okay. So we have 12 items on items for consent. Is there anything anybody wants to pull for further discussion? You've got a conflict?
Yes, I have one.
Yeah, we'll be handled separately. Councillor Nyman?
12.5, just I have a couple questions on it.
Okay. Councillor Maynard, did I see your hand up? No? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, well, let's go to 12.5 and then we'll go to 12.7 and handle that. Okay, Councillor Nyman. Yeah, let's move her in a second or two to move all the others. Councillor St. Jean, Councillor McNaughton.
Okay, this is a St. Jean McNaughton motion that the following items for consent be approved: 12.1, 12.2, 12.3, 12.4, 12.6, and 12.8, 12.9, 12.10, 12.11, and 12.12.
Okay, those in favor? And that carries. So back to you, Councillor Nyman, 12.5. You've got a couple of questions.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm just looking at the last clause there, or last section. That advisory committee requests council to direct the clerk's office to bring forward a report to the committee in Q2 2025 regarding an accessibility lens definition in collaboration with Jeff Beatty, committee member, on how it would be operationalized across municipal departments. I'm just trying to, I guess, want to know what that consists of and what are we looking to do?
Okay, who can address Madam Clerk?
Through the mayor to Councillor Nyman, we don't necessarily know what that looks like, hence there's going to be a report to the committee. There's an accessibility lens, there's a definition that was presented to the committee, which the committee seemed to appreciate, which is about ensuring that a lens taking into consideration people with disabilities, all disabilities, in all of our capital infrastructure budgeting, all of our programs and services. So how do we get a definition that's feasible and acceptable for Prince Edward County? And then if we approve that definition and council endorses it, then how is that operationalized across departments? So what does that look like? So is it an accessibility lens to budget planning? Is it an accessibility lens which we are already using in our policies, the way that we write minutes? So it's just about how do we operationalize that? And we don't have the details yet.
So it gets down to being a definition.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right, anybody, are you satisfied with that, Councilor Nyman?
Yeah, I guess if I can just clarify. So you're looking at what the definition of it is, but to me, what I heard, and I could be wrong, is you're looking at, in order to get that definition, you got to look at what we have now, I guess is what I'm hearing. And I'm just thinking, and I'm not saying it's not a bad thing, but I'm just thinking, the second quarter is almost here. So I'm just thinking, with looking at all that stuff, is it doable?
Through the mayor to Councillor Nyman, we would appreciate additional time to comply with this. With the transition of me going on maternity leave as well, this is falling on the deputy clerk to action, and they do need to get up to speed on this. So we would actually appreciate if there was a different timeline to get this across the finish line to the committee and then to council for your ratification and approval.
So do you want to move it into the third quarter?
I think Councillor Pennell has a question first.
Sure, question?
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest that if it's not done within probably the first quarter, 2026, basically, it's a lame duck council at that point
Well, they're
because
talking
of
about
election year.
second
So,
quarter 25.
pardon?
Looking at second quarter 2025.
No, but the suggestion was to change that because staff is pushing the line there. And all I'm saying is, if we push it ahead, it should be prior to the ending of the first quarter. Otherwise, council is basically a lame duck after that.
Right, but I think the suggestion here is that the report to the committee in the second quarter of 2025. And the clerk has just clarified and said they would appreciate a little bit more time. And I asked if Councillor Nyman about the third quarter of 2025. In other words, an additional few months to bring the report forward.
And I guess what I'm saying, I would like to see it in the first quarter of 26 to give lots of time, because don't forget, once our clerk comes back, there's going to be a million things that she's involved in too.
Certainly will be. Okay, Councillor Nyman, what would you like to do?
Okay, if I could get a seconder to amend the motion to go to, would the third quarter be enough time to help, or would you like it the fourth quarter?
Through the mayor, we would love the fourth quarter.
Okay, so the fourth quarter of 2025, and then that would give
Okay.
it time to.
Have you got a seconder? Councillor Grasso. Okay. Everybody clear on this? Fourth quarter? All those in favor? And that carries. Okay. So we'll move back to, we'll go to 12.7, and this is the one that you've declared a conflict on. One particular portion of that. Is there any further discussion about 12.7? I don't. Okay. Seconder, Councillor McNaughton. No questions. Those in favor? That carries. Okay. Okay, so we'll move 13.1, the bylaws for consideration. Councillor Branderhorst and Councillor Pennell.
This is Branderhorst panel motion that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. 13.1.1, 13.1.2, 13.1.3, 13.1.4, 13.1.5, 13.1.6, and 13.1.7.
Thank you. Those in favor? That carries. And we've got Councillor Branderhorst's last two motions. Confirmatory bylaw, need a seconder. Councillor St. Jean.
This is a Branderhorst St. Jean motion that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward at the meeting held on January 28th, 2025.
All those in favor? That carries. And a seconder for adjournment. Councillor, we need a seconder. Councillor Grasso.
This is Branderhorst Grasso motion that this meeting now adjourn at 8:39 p.m.
Thank you. Those in favor? And that carries. Thanks a lot, everybody.
I really wanted to say this is a Sam times 2 motion. This is a Sam square.
Mr. Mayor, during conversation, I asked one of the deputations